When I wrote Fiberglass Brotherhood, I spoke about the intangible virtue of owning a Corvette. I talked about the quiet mornings, the long drives, the strange sense of peace that settles in when the road opens up and the noise of the world falls away. I talked about community, the Corvette and coffee crowds, the conversations between strangers who somehow already understand each other. What I did not talk about were the numbers. I didn't talk about the economics behind the experience. And over time, I realized something important. The Corvette doesn't just change how a man feels, it proves something measurable about the life he has built. Today, I want to talk about the tangible virtue of owning the car. I spend a lot of time thinking about young men, not in criticism, but in concern, because I see too many of them drifting, comfortable, entertained, endlessly distracted. Hours disappear into screens, days blur together, ambition gets postponed until some undefined future moment when life is supposed to magically begin. And at the same time, society sends a conflicting message. It tells young men that the next step is responsibility. Start a family, take on obligations, become accountable for others. But there is a problem with that sequence. Responsibility without sovereignty does not create stability. It creates pressure. And pressure without preparation turns into resentment. So what do I mean by sovereignty? Sovereignty is not dominance. It is not isolation. And it is not selfishness. Sovereignty means a man can stand on his own structure. His time belongs to him. His finances are stable. His direction is chosen, not inherited. He is no longer surviving. He is steering. Before a man carries responsibility for others, he must first prove he can carry responsibility for himself. And strangely enough, the Corvette becomes a very effective test. A Corvette is not necessary. That is precisely why it matters. Food is necessary. Rent is necessary. Transportation is necessary. A Corvette is none of those things. It is a voluntary commitment. And voluntary commitments reveal character in ways survival never does. To own one responsibly, a man must demonstrate several things: stable income, delayed gratification, planning over impulse, the ability to manage long-term expenses, and most importantly, financial margin. The car demands discipline without forcing it. It is chosen difficulty. And chosen difficulty builds capability. Now let's talk about the tangible side, the part nobody discusses. Owning a Corvette responsibly costs roughly $20,000 per year when you account for payment, insurance, maintenance, fuel, and upkeep. That number sounds large at first, but compare it to what society expects next. The average transition into family life increases annual financial obligations by roughly $40,000 or more. Housing expands. Insurance multiplies. Food costs scale. Risk exposure grows dramatically. The difference is simple. The Corvette is a fixed commitment. A family is an expanding commitment. One is predictable. The other evolves continuously. And this leads to a realization that surprised even me when I began looking at the data. If a man cannot sustain controlled luxury, he likely cannot sustain open-ended obligation. This is not about indulgence. It is about margin. Families do not thrive on survival budgets. They thrive on surplus. When I tell young men, if you can't afford the car, you're not ready for the family, I am not glorifying consumption. I am describing readiness. Because the car represents proof. Proof that income exceeds necessity. Proof that discipline preceded reward. Proof that life is being constructed intentionally rather than reacted to. A family deserves stability that already exists, not stability that is hoped for. Too many men attempt to build identity after responsibility arrives. They believe obligation will transform them into disciplined individuals. Sometimes it does, but often it creates stress before structure has been built. The order matters. Discipline first, sovereignty second, responsibility third. Reverse the order, and life becomes heavier than it needs to be. And this is where the tangible and intangible virtues meet. The intangible virtue is what I wrote about in the book. The early morning drive when the world is quiet, the sense of earned peace. The brotherhood formed in parking lots and conversations between people who share nothing except appreciation for something built well. The car becomes a temple of solitude and community at the same time. But the tangible virtue is different. It is silent proof that a man has crossed a threshold. He is no longer drifting. He has moved beyond survival into authorship of his own life. The Corvette is not simply transportation. It is evidence of alignment between effort and outcome. Now let me be clear about something. This is not an argument against marriage or family. Quite the opposite. A strong family is one of the greatest achievements a man can pursue. But strength requires foundation. A house built before the foundation cures will always carry stress in its walls. The goal is not to delay responsibility forever. The goal is to enter responsibility prepared, calm instead of anxious, stable instead of stretched thin, capable instead of hoping capability appears later. There is also something else that happens when a man achieves something purely through his own effort. He stops chasing validation. He no longer needs approval to feel complete. And when responsibility finally arrives, whether that is marriage, fatherhood, or leadership, he enters it freely, not as escape from loneliness, not as proof of adulthood, but as a deliberate choice. And choice changes everything. Because responsibility chosen feels different than responsibility used as rescue. The Corvette, in this sense, becomes rehearsal. It teaches stewardship before dependence exists. Maintenance teaches care, financial planning teaches foresight, community teaches connection without obligation. Solitude teaches self-knowledge. These are not small lessons. They are preparation. Modern life has quietly removed many rites of passage for young men. There was once a clear transition between youth and adulthood. Today, that transition is often undefined, so men drift, waiting for permission, waiting for direction, waiting for life to signal that they have arrived. But arrival rarely announces itself. It must be constructed. And sometimes the milestone is not symbolic because society says so. It becomes symbolic because of what it required you to become in order to reach it. The Corvette is not the destination. It is the marker. The moment a man can say, I built something stable enough that excellence fits inside it. That peace was earned, not borrowed. That responsibility, when it comes, will stand on solid ground. A man should never hope responsibility will make him strong. He should become strong first. Build discipline, build stability, build sovereignty. And then, when others depend on him, they inherit not struggle, but structure. The car was never the goal. It was proof that the journey had already begun. And that is the tangible virtue.